Hello guys, what's up? Welcome back. Flavio Gargano here for musicinthemirror.com. So long time since the last video, I've been a little bit busy with new exciting project, but today I wanna show you the breakdown of the soundtrack I created inspired by the multi-awarded composer Ludwig Göransson for the movie Tenet. So stay focused, stay creative, and unleash your music. Let's have a quick listen to the project. A piano and the Plucket Synth intro. Now comes my favorite synth. Guys, it's so frantic. The feedback in the background. And here we go. Rocks. Suspension. It's like a dirty clock. This bass is huge. And here we go in another mood. There's tension. Again, piano and Plucket Synth. There is a long preparation to the next refrain. Here we go. Here we go. Up. Go. Well, that was very intense. So follow me and I promise you that at the end of this video you will be able to craft all this sound by yourself. Let's start it! Imagine that I want to create something dark, frantic and restless. This three keyword must be connected in some way to the harmony, the melody and the sound that we will use, and maybe on the tempo as well. Let's focus on the harmony first. I want to explain a basic concept called chord inversion. This is C and the main root. The root is C. Now, I transpose C one octave upper, and as you can see, the bass became E, and this is the first chord inversion. If I repeat this process again, and I transpose E, one octave upper, we have the second chord inversion. Let's have a listen to these three chords. C, it's very strong. It's like the beginning or ending of something. Even if it's major or minor, it keeps being strong. But let's apply the first chord inversion. It sounds different. It's like it cannot stand by itself and needs to land somewhere else, like on F major, or maybe on F minor. Going ahead, we have the second chord inversion, C on G, and this looks a little bit stronger than the previous, but it's waiting for something else as well, like this. This is called perfect cadence. I bet you heard a lot of time in classical music. On minor. By the way, at the end of the story, we can say that the first chord inversion, it's what we have to use to create our instability. And of course, cutting natural connection between chord will help us in our job. So the chord sequence I came up to is G, first chord inversion, that leads to C, and then F minor, first chord inversion, D, first chord inversion. So we got it's like an endless sequence that is waiting for something else more and more. And that's kind of instability. Let's try for a joke to play a chord in the root position. We got you can hear it's totally different. It's another mood. So keep this in mind and use this trick for your next production. Let's create the first instrument, the Plucket Synth. Let's have a quick listen. The function of this instrument is basically to support the piano chord with a rhythmic part. So let's duplicate this instrument and mute the previous one. So I open Resolog 2 and select Initiate. Okay, type multi, I leave the waveform as it is, and increase the number of waveform to 3. In order to create a kind of chorus effect, I increase the detune to 10. Okay, now let's sculpt the sound. I want the sound to the key, so I increase the key and set the sustain all the way down and increase the release as well. Perfect. Now I want to control the cutoff by the modulation wheel. So right click on the cutoff, modulation wheel, enable. And now, as you can see, I control it by the modulation wheel. But the problem is that as I set the cutoff lower, I don't hear anything anymore. So I can say I want 1 kHz to be the minimum frequency accepted by the modulation wheel. And to do that, I move to the 1 kHz here, less more. Select modulation wheel and set minimum. In this way, my whole modulation wheel range will go by 1 kHz from the maximum. And that's exactly what I want. Perfect. Last thing you want to do is to add a little reverb. So I move to the effects page and select reverb. And maybe I want to lower down the mix a little bit and lower down the main time to 4. Okay, let's move to the next instrument, the bass. I wanted to create a master bass, really strong, powerful, and deep. So I open Retrolog 2 and select Initiate. Okay, first of all, I lower the main tune by 1 octave. I leave the oscillator 1 as it is and select Multi. And number of waveform, let's say 3, and the tune a little bit on 5 cents. Okay, for the waveform 2, I select Sawtooth and type Sync and select the shape to, let's say 12 is okay. Now I turn on the sub and select Square. Our bass is taking 4. Okay, another thing I want to do now is to play with the filters. So I lower down the cutoff at 1 kHz, less more. Okay, and I want to play a little bit with the ADSR. In order to make this active, I have to move the envelope on a positive or negative values. I choose, let's say, 30%. Now I want the filter to decay a little bit. So I increase the decay a little bit and lower the sustain. Just make this tweak using your ear. I want just the filter open a little bit and then close suddenly. So let's increase the decay slowly. Yes, you're close, yeah. That's what I want. Okay, last thing I want to do is to add a little bit of ambient. So I move to the effects page and turn on the reverb and lower down the mix level to 50%. Okay, that's good start point, but I promised you I want a monster bass. So let's process. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you the Squasher plugin. It's basically a frequency enhancer with a compressor, and it's included in Cubase Pro version. We got 3 bands here, and we can decrease or increase it, the mix level, and here the compressor section. Down here we got an ADSR section and a sidechain section. Let's go back to our bass. I want to reduce the band to 2 and I want to isolate the frequency between 20 and 100 Hertz. I'm going to increase the input to 15 dBs like this. Okay, I don't need the compressor at the moment because I prefer to insert another compressor or another effect or maybe an equalizer on my insert chain. So I'm gonna set the ratio all the way down. This is a monster bass. Let's check the difference. This is the before. And this is the after. That's huge. You see, in few clicks, we got a master bass. Then I'm gonna add frequency 2, and I wanna just make a little cut on 30 Hertz. Last, I wanna add a stereo enhancer and reduce the width. The reason is very simple. Look at this bass. It's very wide and is slightly moving left to right. This could complicate the mix session, so all I have to do is to reduce the width in this way. Just type it 50% and look at now. The bass stay more in the center and that's exactly what I want. Let's move to the next instrument, the bass sequence. First, I go here and select Initiate. Okay, in order to create a step sequencer, I needed to activate it. So I move to the art page and turn it on. I drag this arrow here until I reach 8 steps. It works, but if I play a chord, the problem is it does play chord, but just a note sequence. To activate the chord mode, I need to go here and select on chord. And now it works. I can change each step length by modifying the gate scale. Look at that. And I'm gonna increase it. Yeah, 75% is okay. Now I want to sculpt the sound, so I go back to the synth page, and for the oscillator 1, I select multi, number of voices 5, and the tune 5. Okay, for the oscillator 2, I select sawtooth and type sync and select the shape. 50% is okay. Let's add some distortion. I want to select clip and 4 and some resonance as well. Now I'm going to assign the cutoff to the modulation wheel, but I can assign it to any control change I want. Let's try Learn CC and I move a random control and look what happened. It's immediately assigned. But I am gonna deassign it and select Forget CC because I want to assign it to the modulation wheel as we saw before. So modulation wheel enable, and now I control it with the modulation wheel. And I want to select the minimum value as well. Let's say 45%, 45 Hertz. So I go here, as we saw before, a modulation wheel set minimum. Now we want to play the filter as well, the ADSR. So I'm gonna increase the envelope and play with the ADSR. I want to sum the key and I lower down the sustain. Yes, that's what I want. Maybe I want to close the filter a little bit more. Okay, and I set again the minimum. Let's see if it works. Exactly. And that is all for now. Now I want to take care of the frequencies, so I'm gonna add frequency 2. First, I make a cut around 50 Hz. Then I added a high shelf around 5 kHz to get back some brilliance. And last, I open a compressor, a band compressor, around 200 Hz, and I set the threshold in order to be activated, triggered by chords and not when I play notes. Let me show you what I mean. Now I'm going to play a single note. As you can see, the compressor is not working, but if I play a chord, aha, now it's working, and that's exactly what I want. That's why I love band compressor, because you can manage and control the frequencies in the best way you want, and the frequency does a really good job. Let's move to the last and, in my opinion, the most interesting instrument I crafted in this project, the synth arc. This patch is pretty complex. Let me show you how it works. When I move the modulation wheel, I will control many parameters and sliders. Therefore, if I push my sustain pedal, I will switch on and off the oscillator tree and sub. And of course, I can control the sub level with the same controller. And if you didn't notice yet, I'm controlling with the modulation wheel the send level effects as well. That's pretty awesome. And I'll show you in a while how to do all of these things. But now let's start from zero and craft this instrument step by step. I click here and select Initiate. I select Multi and Shape 4. Okay, for the oscillator 2, I go for Sawtooth and select Cross, and now I increase the shape until I match the pitch with the oscillator 1. Yeah, okay. Now I want to increase a little bit the decay and lower down the sustain, because I want kind of plucked sound. Yes, like that. And I'm gonna add a little bit of distortion, select clip 1, and a little bit of resonance. Now I lower down the cutoff a little bit, and I wanna play with the filter envelope. So I increase the envelope to 6 and adding just a touch of decay and sustain, release. Yeah, like that. Now, let's have a look to the pattern I created. Yeah, a lot of variation, as you can see, and this match perfectly with the keywords we saw before at the beginning of the video. This creates a lot of instability, having many variation in the same pattern instead of having the same pattern for each measure. By the way, let's go ahead. Now I want to control many of these parameters with the modulation wheel. Let's see how to do that. I move on the cutoff, right-click modulation wheel, enable modulation wheel, and now I can control it. So I go now. I want to set the minimum value to be this one. So I go to modulation wheel, set minimum, and now the full range modulation wheel will go from this point to this point. I want to control the decay as well. and maybe the envelope as well. So first, I want 53 milliseconds to be the minimum value, maybe something else. Okay, so I select Enable Modulation Wheel to assign it to the modulation wheel, and then I go to Set Minimum. Then I move to the maximum value I want it to reach and select Modulation Wheel, right-click Modulation Wheel, Set Maximum. And now they will move together. Let's give it a ride. That's very nice. Now, the problem is that when I lower down the cutoff, I lose a little bit of pitch. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, this is the note we generate with the pitch at this level. As you can see, it's G, but look what happened if I lower down the cutoff. I start losing pitch, and I don't want this. So the way I can fix this is to increase a little bit the fine pitch as the cutoff lower down. So I'm gonna assign the fine tune to the modulation wheel, both of them, the oscillator 1 and 2, and tell them that at the maximum value, they has to be at 0. So modulation wheel, maximum value. And that at the minimum value, when the cutoff is here, they must increase the pitch a little bit and go to here. I calculate less more 56 cents. So I go here and set minimum value. Yes, right. Set minimum. And now, as you can see, when the cutoff is at maximum, they are at 0. When it's at minimum, they correct the pitch. Let's check it out. You see, they try to correct. Obviously, the note is so short that the tuner is not able to recognize the note, but I can make you listen the difference between adjusting and not the pitch. Check this out. You can hear that? It's really slightly, but makes huge difference. So, now I want to automate the envelope as well. I want it to go from 2 to 6 as I open the filter. So first I assign it to the modulation wheel. I select Enable Modulation Wheel. And this has to be the minimum value. So set minimum. Then I go to 6 and select Set Maximum. Now everything can start moving. It's getting so exciting. Wow. And maybe I want to slightly increase and decrease the attack as the cutoff move. So I select the attack and select Enable Modulation Wheel. This has to be the minimum value, and then at the maximum I want it to increase very slightly, maybe 10 milliseconds. Yeah, 11, it's okay. And select maximum value. Check this out. That's very nice. Now I want to create a further variation because I want to use the oscillator tree and sub just in certain moments. So I want to be able to trigger it and activate it with the sustain pedal. But first of all, I select for the oscillator tree XOR, and for the sub, I go for square. Yeah, let's see that sound. Okay, to assign those controllers to the sustain pedal, I just right-click here and I select Learn CC. Then all I have to do is to press my sustain pedal and done. I do the same with the sub. Learn CC. Now they are switching on and off. And of course, I want to control the sub level as well. So right click, modulation wheel, enable modulation wheel. I want it to be the minimum value at 5. So modulation wheel, set minimum. And now everything is moving together. Check this out. Guys, this is super cool. But I want to add some effects. So let's move to the effects page. I want to add a chorus effect, so I go here and select Mod Effects, type Chorus, and okay, set the rate right here and lower the mix level here. Then I want to add a huge space, so I activate the reverb and select the room size to the maximum and the main time to 7, and I set the mix level on 15%, 60%. Yes, I like it. Now I want to add a delay as well, but I want it to work in this way. When I increase the modulation wheel and I open up the filter, I want the delay to be active. But when I lower down the modulation wheel and close the filter, I want to still hear the delay tail, the delay echo. So I'm going to assign the mix level to the modulation wheel. Right click, modulation wheel, enable. And now I'm controlling it. Let's check it out. Yes, it works, but not in the way I want. And the problem is that when I close the filter, I'm lowering down the delay effects, so I'm not able to hear that echo I want to. See that? So this is not the right solution. Let me deactivate it. I struggled a lot to find a good solution, and in the end I came up with this. The solution is that I have to add the delay as a send effects and control it through the automation. But I don't want to write the automation like this. I want to be able to control the automation by the modulation wheel along with all the other parameters I already set up. Is it possible? Yes, it is. Let me show you how to do that. So I close here and I go to Studio Setup and click on Add Device. And I choose Generic Remote. You can see a lot of parameters you can configure and you can set up your control surface in the way you want. But to make this clear, I prepared an empty scenario. And I want to add just the controller I want, the modulation wheel. But first of all, I have to select here the MIDI input and I choose all MIDI input. Then I click here on Add and type name, let's say send level. The type of control I want to send MIDI messages, so the control change number. Okay, I want to transmit on MIDI channel 1. The address, it's the number, the control change number corresponding to your physical slider or knobs on your MIDI surface or control surface. Oops, I don't know which number it is. No problem. Tick here on Learn, move the controller you want and see this number will be updated automatically. But now I'm going to assign the number 1 to my control change. Yes, modulation wheel is control change number 1. When you finished, untick this. Okay, last and important command is to flag these to receive. Otherwise, Cubase will not accept any controls. Then I move on this section and here I control which kind of device I want to control with the modulation wheel. I want to control something that is located in the VST mixer. And the track name is synth up this duplicate that corresponds to this MIDI track, to my MIDI, to the VST instrument I'm working on. And which parameter I want control? I want control the synth level effects. And here I spot the delay and I want control the level. I select it and I click to apply. And now, believe it or not, if I move the modulation wheel, I'm controlling the synth level effects. I click on OK. Just remember, if you want to record the MIDI automation, you have to click on Write. Otherwise, you will not record anything. And so now I'm going to record the MIDI automation and the mixer automation. Let's check it out. See, now when the filter is closed, you still hear the delay tail. And that's exactly what I want. Is that magic? No, that's Cubase Pro. Let's make this instrument more spicy. I'm gonna add a quadrifast tube. This is basically a frequency enhancer with a tape saturator, tube saturator, distortion, and so on. I go on the last band and I select distortion and increase the drive here and increase the gain a little bit as well. Then I move on the second band and select distortion as well and increase just a little bit. Let's check the before and the after. Wow, this comes to life. It's kind of very reactive. Let's see the before again. Yeah, it has less character. The after. Wow, that's amazing. I love it. Now I want to work on the frequencies. So I'm going to add frequency 2. First, I'm going to cut the low end at 100 Hz. And then I'm going to add on 5 Hz a little high shelf. Then I spotted 3 frequency I want to work on. And I set the compressor and the threshold level in the way they never go over this level. Check this out. Yeah, this is how I want it to work. And this is a nice way to work with the frequencies without touching the other frequency, without compromising any other frequencies. By the way, last thing I want to do is to add a stereo enhancer. But this time I'm gonna close to 50% the stereo image. This is why I want to create a contrast with the stereo delay. Don't forget that the stereo delay is by default set on post fader. This means that it will be not affected by the insert chain. By the way, let's move on to the next instrument, the drums. For the percussion, I use Groove Agent SE5. Here I loaded a kick and the percussion. As you can hear, there's a kind of a flam effect. This is the same sample, but it's dry. To add the flam effect, I just move here on the MIDI effects and select Rudiments Active. And here I can set many types of effects. I select flam. Check this out. That's very cool. It's very helpful instead of creating MIDI notes very close that you have to quantize and move. That's very quick. I love it. And then I added a small room and I added room work just to have a little ambient with some small reflection. Let's test it. Yeah, that's very cool. But now I want to check the final result. And that is all, guys. We learned a lot of tricks today and I hope you will use it in your next production. If you like this video, thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell and leave a comment to get the link to the Cubase project. I see you in the next video, but don't forget, stay cool, stay creative and unleash your music.